Kobe Bryant. In 2003, Kobe Bryant faced the darkest chapter of his career when allegations surfaced that nearly destroyed his reputation. At just 24 years old, he was one of the NBA's brightest stars, a global icon who seemed untouchable on the court. But the headlines shifted overnight when news broke of a legal case that would dominate media cycles for months. Sponsors pulled away, fans were divided, and the league braced for impact. While the case was eventually dropped, the damage to Kobe's image was severe, and the fallout lingered for years. He fought through boos in every arena, brutal coverage, and the constant question of whether his career would ever recover. Yet this moment also marked the beginning of a different Kobe, one who became colder, more focused, and obsessed with proving doubters wrong. It wasn't just a scandal. It was the event that forever reshaped his career and his legacy in the eyes of fans and critics alike. And just when people thought they'd seen it all, another player's downfall would send shockwaves through the NBA. Allen Iverson. Before Allen Iverson ever stepped onto an NBA court, his future nearly disappeared overnight. In 1993, while still in high school, Iverson was arrested after a fight broke out at a local bowling alley. The incident made national headlines, and Iverson, only 17 at the time, was sentenced to 15 years in prison with 10 years suspended. Suddenly, the country's most electrifying basketball and football prospect was facing the possibility of losing everything: his scholarships, his freedom, and his dream. The case divided his hometown, with many believing he was unfairly targeted, while others saw him as a symbol of larger social tensions. After serving 4 months, Virginia's governor granted him clemency, and Iverson was released, but the damage was done. Several schools backed away, and it looked like his career might never take off. Only Georgetown's John Thompson gave him a second chance, a decision that changed NBA history. But Iverson's path was never smooth, and the controversies that followed him didn't stop once he reached the league. Shaquille O'Neal. The Shaq and Kobe dynasty looked unstoppable on the surface. 3 straight championships, dominance over every rival, and a swagger that made the Lakers the face of the league. But behind closed doors, it was chaos. Shaq and Kobe's relationship became one of the most infamous feuds in NBA history, fueled by egos, locker room jabs, and public shots in interviews. Shaq accused Kobe of being selfish, while Kobe fired back that Shaq was out of shape and uncommitted. The tension eventually boiled over, splitting the team apart just when they could have built a dynasty like no other. The Lakers had the chance to win 5 or 6 titles together, but instead, the feud forced management to choose between their stars. Shaq was traded to Miami, where he won another ring, while Kobe had to rebuild his image as the lone leader. The feud wasn't just about basketball, it was about pride, jealousy, and the inability of 2 superstars to coexist. And if that wasn't wild enough, the next scandal involved something no one saw coming: social media exposing one of the league's biggest names, Kevin Durant. By 2017, Kevin Durant was already under fire for leaving Oklahoma City to join the Golden State Warriors. Fans called him a traitor, saying he took the easy path to win titles. But what came next was even stranger. Durant was caught using anonymous Twitter burner accounts to argue with fans, defend his own legacy, and even criticize his former teammates and coaches. Screenshots of his mistakes went viral, sparking laughter and disbelief across the internet. How could one of the league's most dominant players be so thin-skinned that he needed fake profiles to clap back at strangers online? The scandal revealed a more insecure side of KD, a contrast to his on-court dominance. While he later admitted to it and laughed it off, the damage was done. His critics had new ammo, and his legacy took another hit. But as crazy as burner accounts were, the NBA's biggest star had already been dealing with whispers about his private life. And those stories had been circulating for years. Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is often praised as the greatest of all time, but even he wasn't free from controversy. During the 1990s, rumors swirled about his late-night gambling habits. Reports surfaced of huge bets at casinos, golf courses, and even on coin flips with security guards. Some speculated that his first retirement in 1993 wasn't just about burnout or the death of his father, but that it was a quiet suspension tied to gambling. Jordan always denied this, but the whispers never fully disappeared. The image of MJ at the poker table or in Atlantic City during the playoffs gave fuel to critics who believed he had a dangerous addiction. Despite the speculation, Jordan always returned to dominate on the court, proving his competitive edge was unmatched. Still, the idea that the NBA's golden boy may have been living a double life fascinated fans. But Jordan wasn't the only one connected to controversy. One player would be at the center of a moment so wild it changed the league forever: Ron Artest. On November 19th, 2004, one of the ugliest nights in NBA history unfolded in Detroit. A hard foul turned into chaos when Ron Artest, now known as Meta World Peace, ended up charging into the stands after a fan threw a drink at him. What followed was a full-scale brawl between players and fans. Broadcast live on national television, the NBA had never seen anything like it. Punches thrown, fans on the court, and security unable to control the madness. Artest was suspended for the entire season, and the league was forced to rethink its image and rules. The malice at the Palace wasn't just a fight, it was a public relations disaster that painted NBA players as out of control and violent. Artest later admitted he struggled with mental health issues at the time, which only added complexity to the story. The suspensions were severe, the fallout was massive, and it took years for the league to repair its image. And as wild as that was, the next scandal would bring drama not from fans, but from inside an NBA locker room itself. Gilbert Arenas. In 2009, Gilbert Arenas was one of the NBA's most entertaining scorers, famous for hitting clutch shots and celebrating with his signature finger guns. But that image took a dark turn when reports surfaced that he had actually brought real firearms into the Washington Wizards locker room. A dispute with teammate Javaris Crittenton over a gambling debt spiraled out of control, and suddenly, the NBA was facing headlines about players pointing weapons at each other before practice. The incident shocked fans, horrified league officials, and instantly derailed Arenas' career. He was suspended for the rest of the season, fined heavily, and his reputation never recovered. What had once looked like a Hall of Fame trajectory turned into one of the most dramatic falls from grace in modern basketball. And while that scandal was shocking, one Hall of Famer from an earlier era kept landing in trouble for a very different reason. Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley built his reputation on being brash, outspoken, and unapologetic, but his off-court antics sometimes went too far. Throughout the 1990s, Barkley found himself in several bar fights that ended with arrests and mugshots plastered across the media. One of the most notorious incidents came in 1997, when Barkley tossed a man through a plate glass window in Orlando after an argument escalated. He famously told police, "I regret we weren't on a higher floor." That kind of behavior only fueled the bad boy image that Barkley carried throughout his career. While fans laughed at his quotes, the reality was that his reputation as a volatile figure hurt his standing with coaches, teammates, and even endorsements. For every MVP caliber performance on the court, there was another headline about his temper off of it. But Barkley wasn't alone in living a wild lifestyle. One of his contemporaries was taking things even further in Las Vegas. Dennis Rodman. When people think of Dennis Rodman, they picture wild hair colors, tattoos, and relentless rebounding. But during his playing days, his off-court life often overshadowed his game. The most infamous example came during the 1997 to 1998 season, when Rodman convinced the Chicago Bulls to let him leave the team mid-season for a Vegas vacation. What was supposed to be a quick break turned into days of partying, late nights, and a media frenzy. Teammates and coaches were furious, but Rodman had always been unpredictable. Stories of him showing up late, hungover, or vanishing altogether only cemented his reputation as the NBA's ultimate wildcard. Despite the chaos, he always managed to deliver on the court when it mattered most, which made it even harder for the Bulls to discipline him. But Rodman's Vegas escapes weren't the only time a superstar's choices made him the most hated man in basketball. LeBron James. LeBron James was already a superstar in 2010, but when he decided to announce his free agency move on live television, everything changed. The decision was supposed to be a celebratory moment where he revealed he was taking his talents to South Beach to join the Miami Heat. Instead, it backfired spectacularly. Fans burned his jerseys in Cleveland, critics accused him of arrogance, and the national media piled on. Overnight, LeBron transformed from a beloved hometown hero into the league's biggest villain. Crowds booed him in every arena, and the Heat's first season together became a circus. While he eventually rebuilt his image by winning championships and returning to Cleveland for redemption, the backlash from the decision remains one of the darkest stretches of his career. But if LeBron's controversy was about ego, another superstar's issues came from his love of the nightlife. James Harden. James Harden has long been one of the NBA's most unstoppable scorers, but his off-court lifestyle has followed him everywhere. Known for his love of clubs and late nights, Harden's reputation for partying has led to constant questions about his focus on winning. Stories circulated about him spending more time at nightlife spots than in the gym, and even teammates whispered about his lack of discipline. Critics pointed to playoff meltdowns as proof that his lifestyle was catching up with him, while defenders argued that he still put up historic numbers, regardless of what he did off the court. Either way, the narrative stuck. Harden became the face of talent meeting temptation. And while Harden's nightlife choices raised eyebrows, the league's newest star would find himself at the center of something much darker. Ja Morant. Ja Morant looked like the future of the NBA, an explosive point guard with highlight dunks and superstar charisma. But in 2023, everything came crashing down when videos surfaced of him flashing guns on social media. The backlash was immediate. The league suspended him, sponsors distanced themselves, and questions about his maturity took over the headlines. What made it worse was that after promising to change, Morant repeated the same mistake just months later, earning an even longer suspension. Fans, teammates, and analysts began to wonder if he would throw away his potential before reaching his prime. It became one of the most frustrating stories in modern NBA history, a superstar risking everything for reckless decisions. And it served as a reminder that behind the fame and highlights, players can be their own worst enemy. If you like this video, consider watching this next one, which YouTube thinks you are going to really love.